And the reason for that is important to remind yourself the reason your brain is doing that is not because there's good reason for it. It's not because there is real danger. It's just because. So hello everyone, and welcome to Live Support with Odile for changing negative implicit childhood memories using the Remmert method. We've created this forum for those who've watched our YouTube videos or read our book and need some help, but aren't in a position to do one-to-one sessions at the moment. If you're new to the Remmert method, be sure to check out the links in the description of this post. And if you'd like to submit a question or you'd like me to work with you in this format, check the link for that in the description of this post as well. So Jennifer says, "Hi Odile, you're such an amazing person, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart for all your support and content you give to this world." So thank you, Jennifer, and you're very welcome. It really is my pleasure. Jennifer continues, "My question is this. I run meetings every week. I notice before each meeting, especially when there are more than one person, I get extremely nervous. Sometimes the nerves calm down and I can get into the flow, and other times it feels like the most uncomfortable experience ever. I do have a speech disorder that acts up time to time, and that definitely doesn't help the self-confidence. I feel like there's a ton of pressure to always have the right answer, and the meetings have a little uncertainty. Symptoms beforehand include brain fog, anxiety, and a weird discomfort in my stomach, as if I'm hungry and could never get full. If anxiety is bad during the meeting, I have trouble speaking and organizing thought, and it feels like there's a ball in my throat and sometimes a lot of shame post-meeting for feeling too vulnerable or not qualified. I love my job, but this makes me want to quit. But if I quit this, I couldn't imagine feeling okay or satisfied in any other profession. If you get around to this question, I'd be more than grateful. Thank you, Jen." So thank you, Jen, for that question. I'm so glad you asked it. What you're describing makes perfect sense. Certainly the feeling in your stomach, that'll be, stress chemicals. And I know that a lot of other people will relate to all of this as well. So the brain fog, the trouble speaking, trouble organizing your thoughts, all of that will be the result of blood draining from your prefrontal cortex, the cognitive thinking part of your brain, to the back of the brain. So one of the effects of stress chemicals like adrenaline and cortisol is that they cause blood to redirect from the prefrontal cortex, where we do our cognitive thinking and strategizing and being able to remember stuff and think clearly, to the back of the brain for survival. And whenever we're feeling negative emotions, that's the result of stress chemicals. So as the stress chemicals are filling your system, you're no longer able to access that part of your brain you need to be able to think clearly and strategically. So in order to gain access again to that cognitive thinking, we need to reduce the stress chemicals in your system and start producing feel-good chemicals. And as your chemical state switches from stress chemicals to feel-good chemicals, blood returns to that part of your brain, and then you're able to think clearly again. So I'm going to give you the solution for all of this in two parts. The first part, I'm going to give you some practical steps you can take leading up to the meeting and to manage the symptoms. And the second part will be about the long-term solution, which will be about changing the original unconscious childhood references that are triggering the production of those stress chemicals automatically in the first place. So where we want to get you to is that you are going into that meeting feeling happy and safe, and that you're able to connect with people rather than feeling like you're on show or that they're judging you. All right, so we're going to start by changing your brain chemistry so that you can move forward with the rest of the steps and gain more control. So right now, as you're watching this recording, take a deep breath and think of your favorite color. And imagine being surrounded by that beautiful color. Allow yourself to focus on what you love about that color and the feeling of that color. And as thoughts and worries occur to you, tell yourself it's okay, you'll come back to them. But just for now, you're just going to focus on the color. And you'll come back to those other things afterwards. And now imagine yourself as a child in front of you. And imagine giving that little you a hug. And tell that little you that you love her and that she's safe right now. She is that part of you who's frightened. So imagine saying to that little girl whatever you would say to a real child who was in the room with you and frightened and feeling and thinking all the things that you feel and think. How would you reassure that child? And then do the same for that little you. So do this part one, whenever you think about the meeting and leading up to the meeting. It doesn't take long. So whenever you think of the meeting, you start to feel those worries, press pause on it. Imagine you're pressing pause on that. You'll come back to it. But for the moment, your color, surrounded by your color, hugging the little you and reassuring her she's okay and she's safe and she's loved, that you love her. All of that. And what you're doing there is those connections between neurons, as you are doing that, will start producing feel-good chemicals and start lowering levels of stress chemicals in your system. Okay. And the more you're able to stay focused on being surrounded by your favorite color and how that feels and hugging and reassuring the little you, the more you'll be lowering the level of stress chemicals in your system and increasing the level of feel-good chemicals. And you'll be able to keep the cognitive thinking part of your brain online more of the time. Remember that your brain will want to keep going to the negative. So it will keep wanting to focus on what you're worried about and all of that. And the reason for that is important to remind yourself the reason your brain is doing that is not because there's good reason for it. It's not because there is real danger. It's just because the unconscious part of the brain thinks that there's a tiger. So those stress chemicals that are produced when we feel negative emotions are the same chemicals that are produced when we're in physical danger. And then the brain becomes obsessed because if you turn your back on the tiger, you could die. But there is no tiger. It just feels like there is. So keep reminding yourself in the moment, it's okay. These are just stress chemicals. And it's just because my brain thinks I'm in physical danger, but I'm not. And then bring your focus back to that color and hugging the little you. Now that is a temporary solution. So on to part 2, which is the long-term solution. So once you've got into that state, so don't do this detective work when you're already feeling bad, when you're already triggered. So once you've done your color, you've hugged the little you, then put on your detective hat and become the observer. And ask yourself, as you think about the next meeting that's coming up, where does your mind go? Just notice where it goes. Don't follow your mind into those thoughts and buy into them. Just observe. So as if you're stepping back and going, okay, what's happening here? Where does my mind go? In other words, you're starting to notice what neural connections are being made. Then notice how that feels and ask yourself, where in your childhood did you feel those same feelings? It's important to remember it may not be the same topic. So it may not be about speaking in front of people or anything like that. It could be something that seems completely unrelated, but has the same feeling. So go with the first thing that comes to your mind, even if it doesn't seem to make sense, and make a note of those memories that pop up, even if they seem random. It's very important to remember there's no need to go into any of the memories. There's no need to go into any of the details. Just make a note of a few words that will identify the memory just for yourself, so you know which one you're talking about or which one you're thinking of, and an approximate age. So for example, granny, kitchen, 8 years old. That's all you need. You don't need any details. Then go through those memories in order of age, with the youngest first, change the youngest first moving forward in time, and change them to the opposite, positive and empowering, and then practice the new ones until they're established. Once you've established those new memories, then think about your next meeting again and notice if it feels the same or different. And keep doing that back and forth until when you think of the meeting, you no longer feel the anxiety. And then moving forward, every time you think of the meeting, play one of those new memories that prove you're safe and loved, one of those new childhood memories, and give that little you a hug. And in addition to using part one of the reply, which I gave you earlier, also play one of those new memories leading up to the meeting. Two main reasons for that. Firstly, it'll lower the stress chemicals and increase the feel-good chemicals, of course, and therefore bring your prefrontal cortex, your cognitive thinking back online. And secondly, it'll redirect your brain to the new evidence that you're safe and loved, and that will lead to authentic and automatic confidence. So I hope that helps, but of course, let me know if you need more suggestions or if you need clarification on anything. Lots of love to all of you. Bye-bye now.